Hey there, folks. Happy Friday afternoon to you. Hope you had a fantastic week trading. Vegas Trader 66 coming at you with this week's market wrap. So last week every once in a while you get it right. So uh, last week I went from being bearish to bullish, and specifically was focused on the IBB and SMH, a few other things that looked really positive, and the fact that we could not take out 203 in the S&P 500 that we recovered on Friday that put me back in the bullish camp. Deployed some capital this week, had some fun, uh, made some nice trades, and actually coming up into a long holiday weekend, I sold off some stuff and got back into a fairly decent cash position again. Moving into a long weekend. But I have to tell you, I was I'm very pleased with the action that we saw this week, and it looks as though the bullish trend could continue. So let's start out where we kind of focused last week, which was the IBB, and let's go there real quick. So the IBB, what we were talking about last week was that we wanted to see us crack above this 270 area of price resistance, which had been a place that had acted as resistance and then acted as support. We wanted to see us get back into this channel, right? Between these two areas of support and resistance, right? Between 289 and 270. Well, we did that. We cracked into this channel. And then what was really positive for me was that we consolidated in this area. Okay. Uh, and I think that's really healthy. We want to build up some energy before we come up and probably test in this 289 area. Now, we may come up in 289, find some resistance there, pull back a little bit, maybe consolidate before we actually try to take 289 out. And that would be very healthy. Consolidate, take out 289, maybe take out this trend line and go up and test the 200-day moving average, which just happens to coincide with the $300 holla. And I love those round number rolls, right? So maybe it goes up into the $300 holla, pulls back to the trend line. This trend line acts as support, and then we move higher. But I really like the IBB. Now, listen, if you don't want to trade the IBB, you can also trade the BIB. Now, the BIB is coming up right into this trend line, right into this resistance. So it wouldn't be a big shocker if we were to pull back a little bit, right? And maybe consolidate and then build up some energy and take out the BIB. So if we get a trend line break, that could be a interesting area to play and look for potentially a $50 tag. If the IBB rolls over, if the BIB rolls over, you could find an opportunity to take a trade in BIS, which is the short biotech, right? And if you look at it, it's testing this trend line and the 200-day moving average. So it wouldn't be, crazy for it to find some support there and make a bounce. So that's what you want to pay attention to for next week if you don't want to play individual biotech names. But I was really happy with the action in the IBB this week. The NASDAQ managed to close above this trend line and close nearly at the high of the day. So, bulls were definitely in control. And it's interesting because we had Janet Yellen, who actually kind of confirmed today. I mean, I didn't expect that we would get total clarity of what the Fed is going to do, which month, or, if they're raising for certain. But she sounded pretty hawkish and indicated that um, we could be raising the rate in the next couple of months. So, very interesting action. It's almost as though, remember last week we only had 28% of people actually believed that the Fed was going to raise the rate and then in June or July. Now that's moved up to almost 50%. think that the Fed will raise the rate, but you still have, people coming out, these guys saying that, this U.S. stock market is dead money, and that, the Fed's not going to raise the rate, and gold's going to 5,000 and all this other stuff. And, we actually, I mean, if the Fed does not raise the rate, I think the market will absolutely tank because they will lose all credibility. We've had so many Fed members that have basically been pounding the table saying the market is underestimating a move from the Fed, and they're pounding the table telling you they're going to do it. And if people get caught by off guard by this, they're just like kind of clueless. And if the Fed doesn't do it, that will be I think a big either way. Here's what I'm thinking. I think if the Fed does raise, that could be the catalyst that sends the markets lower, like it did in December. If the Fed doesn't raise, I think that could be a catalyst to send the markets lower, because they would lose credibility. So for now, though, and like I said last week, I'm short-term bullish until we actually get the confirmation that they're raising the rate. Then I think that could be the thing that takes us down. But NASDAQ closed nearly at the high of the day. Coming up, it looks to me like, NASDAQ really wants to go up and maybe test that $5,000 or 5,000 mark again, right? Maybe it comes. You're going to see some resistance potentially right around the 49.70 area, but to me, it really looks as though we want to go up and test 5,000. Let's take a look at another area that we were impressed with last week, and I'm still impressed with it. I actually was looking at this SMH, the semis, and we got out of the upper Bollinger Band, and I was thinking, this is what, Wednesday, and I was thinking, well, maybe we're gonna get a pullback in the SMH, and man, this thing just kept powering higher. But we are coming up into some price resistance, so I would be a bit cautious in this area in the space. But there is no denying this was an incredibly strong run in the SMH. It's at an area where we can find some resistance. What ideally I'd like to see in the SMH is that we pull back and test this trend line and hold it as support, right? Pull back to this trend line, hold that as support, and then make another move higher. That would be really healthy action. But we could just consolidate. Who knows, man? The way this thing is acting, it's still within the Bollinger Band. Here, maybe we just keep powering higher in the SMH. But I will say this too. The volume, look at the volume. It's declining in the SMH. So there's not as many people that are as convinced or as comfortable buying up here, right? So you don't have a tremendous amount of conviction behind this move as you're coming up into resistance. So keep that in mind. S&P 500 look, we need to break and close above the 211, 212 area, right? I mean, we need to break and close with conviction above that area, and then I think people will get a bit more bullish. Listen, a lot of people were short this market. A lot of people did not believe in this rally. They've missed it. There was a huge short position. The shorts could continue to get squeezed if if this continues to grind higher and then winds up taking out this 212 area with conviction, closes above it. You could see the shorts finally throw in the towel and and bring some more bulls in. So that is definitely possible. Let's take a look at the IWM, which was really, really impressive. Now, the one thing I will say about the S&P 500, before we go to the IWM, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at the dollar. All right, actually, where you at? Okay, so this is the U.S. dollar index. which actually broke above this trend line, right? Had a nice run, consolidated a bit, broke above this trend line. Of course, on the heels of Janet Yellen sounding pretty hawkish. And it does look as though the dollar wants to continue to move higher. That's the DXYL. Let's look at the UUP. You can look at that as well. Right? Broke over the trend line. If the dollar strength continues, that's going to be tough on multinationals. That's going to be tough, on the big boys, right? So you got to be a little bit cautious with that. What I will say, though, is with this move in the dollar, if it continues to move higher, that is going to be tough on gold and the miners, right? So let's just take a look at gold and the miners and the move. Let me go to a cleaner chart here, and the move that it had this week. Not a fun week if you are a gold bull, right? Or a gold miner bull. Now, gold could pull back to this 113 area, find some support there. It could act as support. GDXJ, they all took a fairly decent hit this week. The ones that really got pounded were JNUG, right? And Nugget. And if the dollar continues to rise and continues to strengthen, you're going to see more pain in JNUG and Nugget. Now you can play Dust and JDust if the pain continues in JNUG and Nugget. These are the 3-time bear ETFs, and they could present an opportunity if you continue to see gold roll over, okay? Now, what was impressive today, and actually this week, was the strength in the IWM, the small caps. Now, what we need to see here, let's go there now, is what I'd love to see is I'd like to see a close above 115, right? If we can get a really strong move and a close above 115, I think that would be good for the IWM and the small cap space. So we're coming up on it. We're up 1, 2, 3, 4. This is potential resistance here. So maybe we consolidate a little bit before we actually take out 115. Maybe we pull back a little bit. But the action in the IWM is impressive. And, small cap companies can do well in a rising dollar environment because they don't have any exposure to foreign exchange. So that's something to keep in mind. Mid caps, also impressive, right? Broke over this resistance, closed right at the high of the day nearly. And, mid caps look like they could potentially continue to move higher. So, and that's a lot of breadth, right? So we would see a lot of breadth in the markets if mid caps and small caps continue to move higher. So I like those two spaces. We want to keep an eye on them. Let's see here. One space that continues to look solid is aerospace and defense, and I've been pointing this out. Now these are usually longer term long term hold names. Big companies, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, but this space continues to look impressively strong, and maybe that's because everybody's very scared of whoever our next president's going to be. I mean, it doesn't matter. Either one of the candidates that are going, maybe we're just really scared that something bad is going to happen if either one of them get in. So aerospace and defense, I think, is a space that you want to continue to pay close attention to. XLF Financials had a nice week this week. They are consolidating a little bit right at price resistance. Um, these again, the financials, they're difficult to play for real short-term trades because usually they're such thick stocks, but the financials actually look pretty healthy. Home builders, we just got some really good home building numbers this week, and they're consolidating a little bit after a nice little pop back over the 200-day moving average. Look for home builders to potentially continue their move higher. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about? Oh, so if you don't like playing in the IBB or in the biotech space, another area that looks really good is the healthcare sector. So, coming up into a trend line, coming up into resistance, maybe we consolidate a little bit here. There's, all kinds of names that look fairly valued within the healthcare space, right? There's the actual, like one of the ones that I continue to trade whenever I get the opportunities, THC. They actually have a tremendous amount of debt. So I've traded this thing several times. Was trying to get it in the 25.89 area. It didn't quite happen. Wanted to get back involved, but maybe it breaks this trend line. Maybe it goes up, takes out 30 again, goes up, tests the 200-day moving average. Pfizer has had a really nice run. I wish I would have got that. Actually did try to get it. But maybe on a pullback to this trend line, Pfizer would be fairly attractive. But there are a lot of good-looking names within the healthcare space. It doesn't necessarily have to be biotech. So keep an eye on that sector. Retail had an impressive week. I mean, it bounced, really well. And, I don't like the space personally, but had a nice bounce. We'll see it. It is coming up into potential resistance, so maybe we pull back here. But nice move in the retail space. Transportation sector did take out this little trend line, flirting with the 200-day moving average. I know there were some airlines that had some decent moves, I think, today, but no, that's kind of interesting. So the one space that I am a little bit cautious about is the XLE, the energy space. There's the XLE, and then I'll show you the. So look, we have OPEC meeting coming up next week. Maybe they say something stupid. I'm looking at the USO and I'm saying, okay, we've got some potential resistance, price resistance right around $12.37. It also happens to close this gap right here. That's not a whole lot of upside, right? If we do roll over, where can we pull back to? I'm thinking we can easily pull back to this 1078 area where we maybe find some good price support, right? And where it's acted as support, acted as resistance. We could see that kind of a pullback in oil. And then if we see that, and my concern is that the energy stocks really did not, I mean, even though we tagged $50 this week, energy stocks did not move in kind, right? They kind of lagged a little bit this week. So there are still some really good looking setups in the energy names. But if oil pulls back, I think maybe you're going to see a pullback in the energy names. And one of the things that I am watching for next week is I'm watching ERY, right? Which is the 3-time bear energy. And what I'm looking at here on this is that we've got a potential double bottom, right? Potential double bottom here. If oil pulls back, energy, takes a hit. Maybe we get a pop up into the 19 area somewhere on this, maybe 1875, somewhere like that. From where it currently sits, that's a pretty nice move. So if you see the energy sector start to pull back, that is a potential place for a trade. And then DRIP, of course, is the same thing, right? Looking at a potential double bottom, flirting with the $7 roll. It's going to have some resistance coming up into that trend line. But if it takes that out, you could get a really nice pop in DRIP. So And then there's also DWTI if you want to take a look at that one, which is a three-time inverse crude. You can keep an eye on that as well. So ERY, DRIP, and DWTI, if oil and the energy names pull back next week off of OPEC. Let's take a look at the HYG real quick, because I did see something that was somewhat interesting there. So HYG, I'm looking at this trend line, right? And we bumped up into it. We pulled back a little bit, and we've got this price resistance at 84 bucks. Wouldn't be a big shocker if we saw a pullback in the HYG, right? Which you know, a lot of the high yield names could also be some of those pipeline and some of these oil names, right? You could see some weakness there. So it wouldn't be a total shocker if we saw a pullback. Let's talk about volatility real quick, because there is none. Right? There is absolutely no volatility. So I don't know if you are familiar with the new volatility ETFs, but there is the VMAX, which is making new lows, and then there's the VMIN, which is making new highs. And not a lot of volume trading in these things at all. But worth keeping an eye on those two things as they become more popular. But let's take a look at the TVIX. It's going to zero. Probably going to do a reverse split real soon here. TVIX and UVXY both continue to make new lows because there is no volatility whatsoever in the markets. And look, maybe we don't get any volatility until we get confirmation as to the Fed raising the rate in June, right? That could be the catalyst that spooks people and brings down the market. But there's a lot of positive stuff going on out there. I am still bullish. I have a bullish tone heading into next week. I think, you know, keep an eye on the IWM, keep an eye on IBB, keep an eye on the healthcare sector, financials. I mean, there's some really good looking strength out there, and see if we can get some follow through next week. But keep an open mind, right? Anything can happen. Listen, I will be doing Stocks to Watch video on Sunday, 8 a.m. Vegas time. It probably won't be a long video. I have a big day planned for Sunday. Got friends coming into town. They'll be staying with me, so it's going to be a crazy weekend. But I will be doing it 8 a.m. Sunday morning. Stocks to Watch, and if you can't make it, that's fine. Send me your stocks if you have something on your radar, and I'll do my best to get them on the live Ticker TV session. And that's it. If you can't make it, that's okay. I realize it's a holiday weekend. I hope everyone has a fantastic Memorial Day holiday, and just remember why we're able to have that holiday. It's for people that have made the ultimate sacrifice for us to be able to do what we do and stay safe and be free and all that stuff. So hope you have a wonderful holiday, and I will see you all either Sunday or next week. Be safe. Have fun.